Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on porch time again today. I know a lot of y'all are just enjoying the basking in the cool weather, and we can only dream here at Deep South Homestead and hope that that day will come. But right now, it's a balmy, about 80 degrees, and it is, it's early in the morning. It's one of those things that, here in the Deep South, you just have to get used to. I mean, we're enjoying some cloudy weather right now, and it's not extremely hot, but we sure could use some 60 degree, some temperatures in the 60s instead of being in the 70s every morning, but it is what it is, and that's life where we live at. So, but anyway, today, guys, I thought about it, and I really like doing porch time. But I really want to do something that's, is beneficial. I don't want to just sit and talk. I want to be beneficial. I want to be educational. I want it to be a learning experience. And I've been painting this morning. As you can see, I've still got paint on my hands. Trying to get the pantry done in the house there for all of our canned goods and all. And as I was doing it, I went to move a certain way, and my back just almost went out on me, and I was like, whoa, let's just take it easy, and it prompted the thought train in my head of dealing with disabilities on a homestead. Guys, let's just be honest about it. None of us are getting any younger. Some of us still enjoy pretty good health. Some of us have real good health, and there are those of us that's more than, this is probably what I'm finding out, that there's more people that's dealing with disabilities than they are that's not dealing with disabilities. And I'm going to be talking to both the younger generation and the older generation. Because you see, I deal with tons of disabilities. And I never give up. I just keep pushing. Is it easy? No. There's lots of days I want to just throw my hands up in the air and just say, I don't even want to go out of the house. I just want to sit here in this chair and just not do anything today, because it's either too hot, I can't deal with the heat anymore, or my back's hurting, my neck's hurting, my shoulders, my legs, guys, there's just tons of things that I deal with here on my homestead. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're new to our channel or something, you can go back and watch some of our older videos where I talk about the things that's happened to me. October the 17th, 1977, I had a massive car accident right before I was supposed to go take my test to go into Navy SEALs. I had a massive car accident that they figured I would die. They had already told my parents that he's probably not going to live because it was just so bad. But I was in extremely good physical condition. Ran miles every day, I was just really was the epitome of health at that time, preparing to go in the military. And to have an automobile accident like I did and get thrown from a vehicle as far as I did and still live, going through all the injuries that my body experienced, to just tell you a few, my right femur was broken completely in half. My left shoulder was torn out of my body out to the side. My sister was in the car with me. When I left the car, I actually put my arm around her, and when I left the car, she exited with me in my arm, and when I hit a clay bank some 100 and something feet from the car, she was still in my arms, and her body force broke the ribs on one side of my body and shoved them through my lungs, and I was bleeding internally. It was not good, and I pulled out of it. I had to learn how to walk all over again. It messed me up so bad. And I spent about a year in a wheelchair and on crutches, trying to learn how to maneuver my body again. I was told I would never run again, and I loved running because I ran long distances and stuff. I was told that I would probably be disabled very young in my life. And because of that, I never really held a public job. I held one small public job for just a few months right out of high school, but other than that, I've always worked for myself because it was hard for me to keep up with everybody else. But I said all that to say this. I never gave up. Now, that wasn't the only accidents I had in my life. I fell from a high distance and I broke my neck one time. I've broke my back. I've broke my wrists. I've torn my right clavicle all to pieces and shattered it. I've had multiple accidents in my life that's left me impaired, and I've broken both ankles. Had to learn how to walk again with 2 broken ankles after they were broken. So guys, it's not that we're some kind of superhuman or something. It's a simple fact about how much will do you have to do what you want to do. Now, I've always owned a farm ever since I was old enough to own property. I've had cattle and chickens and pigs and turkeys and goats and stuff because I just loved the animals, and I've always gardened. I've always ate from the fields and from the gardens, and I never gave up. I pushed and pushed and pushed, and there's many mornings I get up. Now I have heart issues, and my arthritis is set up in my body everywhere. To give you, for instance, we went down to the carrot bed. We all saw me shooting a video the other day about digging the purple sweet potatoes from the carrot beds. I went to stand up, and I was sitting on my right leg, squatted down on it. When I went to stand up, my right leg had locked behind me. Now, I don't know what happened. It's never done that. I just had to sit there and keep forcing my leg forward until it finally made a loud pop, and it, I didn't know if it broke or what happened to it for a moment. But I got up and tested my pressure on it, and it's been about a week now, and it's still pretty sore. But I've never had nothing like that happen. I'm talking with Brian from the Lori family. I told him, I said, one of these days, I guess I'm just going to fall apart out here. I don't know what's happening. But that's called aging. We all are going to do it. And my dad was a very wise man to have no more than a 4th grade education and owned his own business most of his life. And my dad one day broke his back. He picked up a big battery and stepped off of a lowboy trailer onto the ground. And the jar of that battery, and my dad was a big, strong man, but the jar of that battery ruptured a disc in his back. And my dad went a couple of days before he would even go to a doctor. And then when he went to a doctor, they immediately put him in surgery. He had a pie-shaped piece of a disc had shattered out and come out in the back of his back and was pushing against his nerves. He had surgery. Well, my dad owned his own logging company at that time, and he couldn't go back to work. And he had a crew of men and tons of equipment that had to be paid for. And you got logging equipment's got big notes. So I stepped in to run my dad's business for him, and I remember after about the 3rd day of his surgery, they let him come home, and one of the 18-wheelers that we had, those of you who drove 18-wheelers understand what a headache rack is. We were going to change the headache rack off of this one 18-wheeler and put a different one on there because of OSHA and rules that had to have a specific kind of headache rack. And I told Dad, I said, well, if we'll wait till the weekend, I'll get to that. Because during the week, I just didn't have time. I came home from work the next evening after 3 days from my dad having surgery. I come home and that headache rack was off out in the yard. And I looked at him, I said, who took the headache rack off? And my mom said, your dad did. I was like, Dad, you just had back surgery. What are you doing? Are you trying to kill yourself? Are you trying to injure your back again? He told me, he said, son, let me tell you something. He said, you're a young man. You still got good health. As good as you can have after that automobile accident. He said, but let me tell you something. The day that you learn to use this right up here instead of this back here will be the day that you learn to live. And I told him, I said, I don't know if I understand 100%. And he said, use your head, son, not your back. He said, when your back is gone, you're no good no more. He said, you can't do what you used to do. He said, that's why you use your head. Stop. Take time. Think your way through something. See how you can do it with the least amount of human effort possible. If you have equipment, use equipment. If you don't have equipment, get equipment. He said, you may not think you can afford equipment. And you'll get out there and you'll push your body to its limits because you say, well, I just can't quite afford to make the payments on equipment. He said, but when you screw around and mess your back up like I did, there ain't no amount of money in the world that's going to fix that. You'll have it for the rest of your life. Those notes eventually be over with on something. He says, and you'll still have your health. He said, so son, don't get out here like a fool like I did and mess your back up. Use equipment. That's why God gave us equipment to do the work for our backs so that we can have good health. And guys, I can't always say that I've adhered to that all the way through my life because I overcame my disabilities. And yes, I learned to run again. I used to run the quarter mile very quickly again. I could long distance run again. I used to do all those things. And I was extremely proud of myself for being an overcomer of the obstacles that was in my life. But let me tell you something. The day my heart went out on me and started messing up, I thought my back problems and my neck problems were bad. But let me tell you something. When your heart messes up, I don't care if you've got a good back, a bad back, or whatever. I don't care how strong you are. It changes everything in you. And that's where I'm at today. I get up in the morning, I go out, I do what I can. And when I realize I can't do anymore, I stop and I come back in. And I just sit down and I take it easy, or I sit down in my shop and turn the fan on and I do something sitting down in the shop or in the greenhouse. I'll go sit down and work in the greenhouse. It's all about knowing your limitations and never, ever giving up. I can't, never could do anything. So don't be a quitter. Quitters never win, and winners never quit. Learn to be an overachiever. Learn to be that one that succeeds at what you do, even though you have disabilities. It's like me. I was an avid archery hunter most all my life. From the time I was 12 years old up until I was 40-something years old, I was an avid archery hunter. I traveled all over this country bow hunting. I've killed 73 deer with a compound bow, long bow, recurve bow. I've shot them all. Enjoyed it with the most passion in the world. The guys, the day this rotator cuff tore right here, I thought my world had come to an end for archery hunting. But luckily, the state that I live in now allows crossbow hunting without being disabled. And guys, I now have a crossbow that it's not the pull kind. It has the crank on it. I'm able to crank that thing up, and my love for deer hunting has once again been rekindled because of a very dear YouTube friend who actually gave me this crossbow. And guys, that person knows who they are, and I'm not going to call their name because I don't have their permission. But guys, that person made all the difference in the world to me, because now I can once again enjoy something that I used to enjoy. I had almost given up on being able to hunt. And never really thought that much about a crossbow because I didn't really think they were that powerful. But let me tell you something. I shot a deer 2 years ago with this thing, or last year, maybe it was last year with this bow. And it done more damage to that deer than my high-powered rifle does. So, I'm sold on the crossbow. But there once again was the opportunity to overcome a disability and to still be able to live the life that I used to live, to still be able to provide meat for the homestead here. Guys, that's what it's all about. It's looking for alternatives in doing things. Now, since I've got the torn rotator cuff and my arm's messed up now pretty bad, I don't have a lot of strength left in that arm like I used to have. So I can't really like cranking a chainsaw or something like that. I can't do that anymore. And with my neck having been broke, I can't take that vibration of a gas-powered chainsaw running. So you're going to see some videos coming up here pretty soon about an alternative to that. I eventually figured out something that I could do. And I think that those of you who have some of the similar disabilities might even try it for yourself, because I think I might have found a way that I can continue to produce my own firewood and not have to 100% depend on somebody else to actually cut it down for me and cut it up. Now we're still hoping and praying for a log splitter, that God will make one available to us so we can keep it here on the homestead so that we'll have one. We don't have that right now. A dear friend of ours let us borrow an electric one a little over a year ago to bust up our firewood, and then Marshall Farms came. Delane and Tanya, his wife, came, and Delane cut a lot of firewood up for me one day here and took his log splitter and busted it up for us. I'm eternally grateful for people who will do things like that, and I'm sure that they'll be blessed for doing things like that. But guys, it's always a good thing when you can do your own stuff. I love having people come and help. And I may still have to have them. I don't know yet. But I'm in the process of working out a way to cut my own firewood. It's just that Wanda and I, we don't have an outside income, so a log splitter for us is one of those things that we'll have to start just setting a few dollars here and a few dollars there back. And hopefully sometime in the future we'll be able to afford one. But that's down the road. If have to be, we'll try to just, come up with small stuff. There's lots of times I go around in the woods here on my property because it's all oak trees. I've taken all the pines out. And the oak limbs are constantly falling out of these trees. These big old limbs just fall to the ground. They die in the tree and fall. And I take the tractor and go around through the woods and load them in a bucket. I bring them back to my shop. I take a skill saw, a chop saw, or a sawzall, and I sit there and cut them things up into small pieces of firewood so that we have some firewood and I don't lose this wood in the woods over here. That's another alternative for me. If I don't have a chainsaw and can't use one, then I use electric tools. That skill saw works miracles on little small stuff, and chop saws. And the little bit bigger stuff, my sawzall with a wood cutting blade on it cuts right through them. I'm able to do it for a little while because the jarring of the sawzall kind of messes with my neck, but I can do it for 20 or 30 minutes at a time and cut a few up and go rest and cut a few more up because I don't give up. I constantly look for alternatives. That's why we have a tractor now with a front end loader on it. I've spent most of my life without a tractor with a front end loader. And now that I have one, I sit back and I look and I go, you crazy joker, why didn't you just buy one when you were younger instead of buying all these other ones and get you a good front end loader? Well, you know what it was? It wasn't that I didn't have the money. I still had my back. And I was still doing some lifting. Now, when we buy feed, I just pull that bucket right up to the tailgate of my truck, let the tailgate down, I just slide it from the tailgate right over into the bucket, no lifting involved. I take it to my shop. I drop the bucket down. I take a dolly. I slide it out of the bucket onto a dolly, roll it into my feed room. And guys, the only lifting I have to do is from that dolly to the top of that 55-gallon drum, which is about 2 foot. I pick it up and set it over in that drum. And lots of times Wanda helps me, so there's only a very little bit of lifting done. It's just that when you get older, you learn to find the alternatives for the disabilities that you have. There's just piles of ways, guys, that I've learned to do things and not have to use my back anymore than I absolutely have to. So my prayer is for each and every one of you that's dealing with certain disabilities is that you'll find a way. Now, I've already put a chain wall out here in front of my house because there's different levels of the ground. Every bit of my property is on a hillside. We have no flat land. So what I've done is my house is set down and my yard goes and comes up and there's a chain wall across there. I told Wanda, I said, and I poured a sidewalk along the bottom of it. I told her, I says, when I get to the point that if I'm ever in a wheelchair again, at least I can roll along that chain wall and maybe put some pepper plants or tomato plants or cucumber plants or whatever right on the other side of that block wall and grow them. And I'm still able to have some joy in life and be able to produce some food for myself and not just be stuck sitting in the house all the time. We sent some seeds, I've told y'all many times, to a young lady up in New York who is in a wheelchair. She put her up one of these little mini greenhouses like we showed around here on our one of our videos here. And in that little mini greenhouse, she grew some tomato plants. Her sidewalk in the front yard, she set some out there. And let me tell you something. She sent me a message back and she said I had more tomatoes than I knew what to do with, and peppers and stuff. And she said, thank you for being such a blessing to me in my life. And guys, look, that's what it's all about. It's about never giving up and learning how to bless other people by doing things that we've learned how to do. That's on Deep South Homestead is one of the things that we try to do here is to show y'all like container gardening. We now have some benches that fits between our containers. We don't have to stay on our knees anymore. We don't have to stand up and bend over. We can put those benches between our containers and we can reach these containers, turn right around and reach the containers on the other side of us. We can weed them, we can fertilize them, we can plant them, we can pick them. And guys, there's very little strain on our back. It's all about learning how to deal with your disability. And I know some people who live in certain areas of the country are able to do raised beds because it doesn't get as hot as it does here. And they're able to actually sit on the edges of their raised beds because they're high enough and they can grow stuff in them. Now, we don't have that luxury here. Anything 4 inches out of the ground here, it just gets too dry and too hot and it won't grow like it should. But those of you who live in a part of the country that can do that, take advantage of it. Don't destroy your back. If you've got a deck or handrails or anything like that that you can put some pots on and you can grow some stuff, get out there and just do it. Enjoy your life. Just because you have disabilities doesn't mean that you have to give up. My brother had a house trailer fall across his back and paralyzed him. For many, many years, my brother helped my parents, who ran a lawn company, who manicured yards. They ran a Christmas tree farm. My brother did not stay in the house all the time at that point. His health was still good enough that he got out there and he mowed yards on riding lawnmowers with being paralyzed. He'd strap himself in the lawnmower and get out there and mow. And when he'd help with the Christmas tree farm, he'd ride around out there and help people pick Christmas trees out. And guys, he ran the fruit stand for my mother and them and father. He did woodworking. He built wooden toys and all that kind of stuff in the shop. Sold all that kind of stuff, and until his health just got so bad that he just literally couldn't stand to be sitting up anymore because of pressure sores and things like that started happening to him. The guys, he didn't give up either when he still had some help. And those kind of things should be inspirations to us when it comes to trying to live and do the best that we can do. So I'm going to leave it at that today because I got to get back to painting. I got to finish up this cabinet. And guys, don't let your disability, whatever it is, get you down. Thank you from Deep South Homestead.